Hi, Misha here, and keeping on looking at some new models, or at least new variants from Hobbymaster 172 scale diecast. Last time we looked at the all-new French Dassault Rafale C. Now we're going to look at something that they've done quite a few of, but it's a new variant. This is, of course, the North American F86 Saber, or rather, a variant of. This is a Canadair MK.6, which is basically a variant F86F 40, but it has their Orenda engine in it and some other, quality of life improvements. And this particular one is in West German Luftwaffe paint scheme, as they flew Canadian-made Sabers for about 7 years front line and use them for training afterwards. So as before, we're not going to go too deep into the history, but we'll look at this new model because it's pretty neat, and I'm glad I picked it up. So with that, let's put it on the spinny thingy. So the whole Canadair Saber began in 1948 when Canada decided they would get into the F86 Saber, a developing aircraft at the time. Of course, this is a very famous jet, right alongside the MiG-15. Really the first combat-capable, really successful generation of fighter jets. F-80 came before, and of course the F-84, you know what I mean, though. And originally they were going to have 10 kind of test aircraft, but in 1950 this was up to 100 because of the Korean War kicking off. The Mark 1 was just a test bed, basically. They built one F86A. The Mark 2 was full production. It was an F86E type using a General Electric engine, and it was mostly meant for the Canadian Air Force, although around 60 were given to the U.S. Air Force to help supply things for the Korean War in 1952. The Mark 3 was actually the test bed for the Avro Orenda engine, which would later appear in this. They only built a couple of those, I think. The Mark 4 was basically the Mark 2 with a couple of minor improvements, but it was built for the RAF primarily, although some were temporarily flown by the Canadian Air Force. The Mark 5 was the first production model for the Orenda engine, and it also had the larger wing and some of the improvements from the F86F. And now we come to the Mark 6, which is the single biggest production run. While they would build about 1,800 of these in total, 1,815 to be exact, 655 were of the Mark 6 variant here. It had an uprated version of the Orenda engine, and it was the first that could support the AIM-9B Sidewinder missile. Other ones could not. And it was produced up until 1958, nominally speaking. And quite a few of these would enter into the Canadian Air Force, but also, of course, West Germany. West Germany would actually get 75 Mark 5s and 225 Mark 6s, so for a total of 300. And they would be in frontline service between 1957 and 1964. In both Canada and West Germany, they would be replaced by the F-104 Starfighter. However, they would be kept as kind of training and whatnot aircraft through the 60s and even into the 70s. And other users like Pakistan would continue to use them as frontline aircraft through the early 70s, even into the mid-70s and 80s. But, of course, by 1980, they were just being retired out. But this is often considered the best Saber, the Mark 6. It had enhanced maneuverability and some performance, a little bit of a cost of speed. This couldn't quite reach 700 miles per hour. Had a ceiling of just over 54,000 feet. With the larger wing and redesigned body for the new engine, we're at about 37.5 feet long and just over 37 feet wide wingspan. And yeah, of course, single seat jet. It's just a classic design. I don't know what else to say, really. You know, it's the Saber, or the Canada Saber here. Australia also made a variant, and of course North America made it in the USA. And they're very well regarded. And of course this model is a pretty neat one. It's kind of neat to see the late style Sabers, because often when you see models of Sabers, they're Korean vintage, as is right, but the later ones do have some improvements. So yeah, looking at it here, it has the later style wing without the front slat. It does have not a two-piece cockpit design, but it has the sliding cockpit. And of course, removable pilot figure. Has the pitot tube on the wing. And then underneath, we have a single-piece landing gear system. Pegs in, of course. You can do open or closed. It also has air brakes. You can either have closed or deployed on each side. And under the wings, we have a total of 4 hard points. The Saber could carry a decent amount of payload, about 5,300 pounds. But, you know, it was a bit limited based on its time. Like I said, before this version, it was pretty much limited to bombs and rockets. With later versions like this, they could carry early Sidewinders, 2 of them. And typically, they'd carry 2 drop tanks. So if you had it in the kind of air-to-surface rail, you'd have 2 1,000-pound bombs and then 2 drop tanks. Or you could have it in the air-to-air air defense, because this is West Germany. You would have the 2 missiles. It also had 6 50 caliber machine guns with a total of 1,600 rounds. Of course, that's what it primarily used in Korea, at least in the air-to-air, of course. You still have that, plus you'd have the 2 missiles. But these early Sidewinders, while a leap forward technologically, weren't, you know, what we think of today. They were pretty primitive. One thing I'll point out, according to Wikipedia, it's the inner pylons that are wet plumbed. But every time I get one of these Hobby Masters, the tanks go on the outer pylons, and the ordnance goes on the inner. So let me know if they're wrong, because the missiles have a smaller slot than the tanks, so I don't think I could switch them around. This seems to be where they want to fit, so someone's wrong, either Hobby Master or Wikipedia. If you know, please let me know. But yeah, this has the Orenda engine, which yeah, gave some better performance, but it did come at the cost of higher landing speed, especially because of the redesigned wing. But nevertheless, it's a very well-respected Saber variant, and I really think this West German setup as an air defense is pretty neat. And if you compare it to Hobby Master's F86Es, there are a lot of little differences that add up, and it's clear they put a lot of effort into it. So I thought it was worth getting. I haven't picked up a Saber in a while. What do you think? Do you like the F style, or do you like the earlier E style? And these plug into their stands very well. And if you don't want to have it on the stand, you can fill that square hole with the little plug that these come with. So if you want to do like wheels down, or, I don't know, hang it from a string. But yeah, neat aircraft. A late service style Saber. And I wanted a Canadian one. I've got an Australian one. Of course, I've got a couple of North Americans. So it's kind of nice to kind of complete the production lineup. So yeah, let me know what you think. Appreciate you hanging out. And we can do a big Saber video one day again soon, when I have time to get all the old ones off the shelf and dust them. They are dusty now. Appreciate you hanging out, though. This is Misha. Catch you very soon next time.